I found this book that was one of my favourite books when I was little, and I'd like to read it to you as part of, at the moment, I realise there's a lot of people there that could do with some comfort and connection, and there's lots of children at home, and I think stories is the perfect way for us to cuddle up, listen to a story together, and keep connected. So this is my way of reaching out to all of you, and I've chosen mainly children's books, but books that I think can be enjoyed by everyone of every age. This one's called Pookie Put the World to Right, and it's about this little flying rabbit and his adventures. It's called Pookie. So, I recommend you go and grab as many people as possible and get really cozy with blankets and quilts and pillows, and then I'll read to you. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. It's written by Ivy L. Wallace. Doesn't say who the illustrator is, so I'm guessing she's also the illustrator. Very early one cold autumn morning, Pookie, the little white rabbit with wings, woke in his cozy work basket to find Bellina, the woodcutter's little daughter, saying, "Wake up, Pookie, wake up! Please wake up." Too early," frowned Pookie, snuggling down. "Please don't go to sleep." Pookie, cried Belinda. "Listen." Pookie listened. All he could hear was the angry wind howling and whining round the cottage, so he shivered, covered his ears with his paws, and disappeared under the eiderdown. "There's been a terrible storm all night," said Bellina. "3 trees have been blown down, and—" "Trees blown down? Trees blown down," gasped Pookie, jumping up, wide awake. "But what about the animals who live in them? The squirrels, and what about all the birds in the branches, and the rabbits among the roots?" "That's the awful part of it all, Pookie," worried Belinda. They will be homeless now, and some may be hurt." "Oh, Belinda," cried Pookie, "what can we do?" "There's a lot we can do," said Belinda, "but first get dressed and help me light the fire." Pookie put on his warmest blue trousers and then brought small sticks from the wood box. Soon a bright fire blazed around. "Shall I fetch the homeless animals in now?" said Pookie. Belinda opened the cottage door and looked into the dark, stormy wood. "Not yet," she said. "It's still pitch dark." This book's been well loved. "When will dawn be?" worried Pookie. "In about half an hour," Belinda told him. "Now here is a nice carrot for your breakfast. Sit by the fire and have it, Pookie." When he had finished, Belinda said, "We must get beds ready for the homeless animals. Help me to find all the boxes in the cottage, Pookie, and we will line them with soft pieces of blanket and put them by the fire." Pookie knew the terrific importance of it all. He had once been brought in, exhausted out of a snowstorm, and warmed in a woolly shawl by Belinda's fire. So now he hurried backwards and forwards with every box he could find, whilst Belinda knelt by the hearth and lined each little bed. And all the time the frightening wind raged and howled outside, and the rain lashed against the window panes. Pookie and Belinda thought of the poor little woodland animals and the birds who had been blown out of their homes. Now they would be crouching in the soaking wet grass, or scurrying around trying to hide in safe corners. Soon the last little bed was ready and put with the others of all sizes, from large ones for squirrels and rabbits, down to tiny ones just the size for a weary field mouse. "Can I fetch the animals now?" begged Pookie. "They won't come out of sheltered places until dawn comes and the wind dies down," Belinda told him. "So fly up on the table and help me get the saucers ready. The animals and birds will be hungry and thirsty." Belinda's store cupboard was well stocked, for during the fine weather Pookie and she had collected nuts, seeds, and berries, and fruit from the woods. Belinda had dried them carefully and stored them for the winter. Now she arranged saucers of nuts for the squirrels, berries and seeds for birds, oatmeal for harvest mice, and brought juicy carrots from a sack for the rabbits. Pookie carefully filled patty tins with water. Then Belinda said, "Dawn is almost here. The rain has stopped and the wind has dropped. Take your lantern, Pookie, and go and find the homeless woodland folk." Pookie put on his warm red muffler, took his little lantern and set out. The wood was strangely quiet after the storm-torn night. A stillness had settled like a thick shadow, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of soaking leaves. Pookie's paws squished through the mud, and the light from his lantern bobbed and glistened on the wet grasses. Soon he found his first fallen tree, a giant elm lying amongst its smashed branches and crushed leaves. Pookie heard a woe-begone whimpering. "My beautiful home! Not a stick of it left. Oh, my whiskers, what trouble I'm in." A few yards away, Wiggle-Nosed Rabbit was complaining crossly. "Without a word of warning, my front door was wrenched from its hinges, and my hall flooded out. Disgraceful it is. Go straight to Belinda at once." "At the cottage," Pookie told them. "She's expecting you." Pookie searched on. Suddenly he heard a strange cry, a sort of gasping squeal. "Help! Ooh, ooh." It came again from high in the branches. Up flew Pookie with his lantern, and there, trapped in his own front door, was Uli Owl. "Get me out of here, Pookie!" he called, as a little rabbit hung his lantern on a twig. "Trapped by a broken bough across my wing. Could you lift it and help me? Ooh, thank you, Pookie." Ooh. "How is your wing, Uli?" asked Pookie. The owl flapped it gingerly. "Ooh, it hurts. Ooh," he replied. "Go straight to Belinda," advised Pookie. "She will help you." She will help you. "Help! Help!" came a tiny squeak from far below. "Help! Help! Please help!" Down flew Pookie with his lantern. There, waving his paws in despair, was fat, sleepy Diddley Dormouse. "Save us!" he squealed. "We were fast asleep among the nice cozy leaves at the foot of this tree, and the flood came and half drowned us." His tubby little wife nodded drowsily. "Go straight to Belinda," said Pookie. One after another he came across frightened little storm-beaten field mice and dormice, 3 hedgehogs, a squirrel, 4 moles, and 3 more rabbits, and several bedraggled little birds. Soon there was a steady procession of homeless woodland folk hurrying towards the warmth and safety of Belinda's cottage. "I think I've found them all," thought Pookie at last, when he... I've just got to show you this. had searched the whole wood, so I'll go home and help Belinda. In the cottage, most of the animals were sitting in warm, dry beds, looking much better. They had nibbled and sipped from the saucers, and now there was a tremendous lot of paw washing and fur smoothing going on. Woolly Owl preened his feathers and said wisely, "Ooh, winter will come, early this year." Wiggle-Nosed Rabbit squeaked with alarm. "Don't say such things, Woolly. I haven't dug my new burrow yet. The one I have is really too near the stream in this rainy season." "I haven't stored any nuts yet," worried Squiffle-tailed Squirrel. "I meant to look for a dry hedge to winter under." Spiky Hedgehog, said Squeaky Spiky Hedgehog, "but I thought winter was a long way off yet. The berries have been scarlet on the hedgerows for longer than I realized," murmured Squirrel drowsily. All morning and all afternoon, Pookie and Belinda worked carrying saucers, refilling patty tins, and tucking in blankets. At last, everyone was comfy and feeling snoozy. So tired, Belinda sat down and Pookie flew up on her knee. "Don't worry any more, Belinda," he comforted. "I can't help worrying, Pookie," said Belinda. "Listen." Pookie listened, and his eyes grew round with worry too. The storm was creeping up again, and the wind muttered angrily down the chimney. Even as they listened, he seemed to lose his temper, hurling himself furiously against the cottage door. "There will be another dreadful storm tonight," Pookie whispered Belinda, "and more damage in the woods." Then came a thundering crash in the distance. "Another tree blown down," whispered Pookie, horrified. "I hope the woodland folk will see our cottage light and come to shelter," whispered Belinda. But no one came. For hours the furious wind lashed through the weary wood without mercy, smashing branches and stripping leaves and berries off every tree. Round the hearth the homeless animals slept soundly, noses tucked snugly into furry coats, but Belinda and Pookie kept watch. When dawn came, he put on his woolly muffler, lit his little lantern, and flew out of his own tiny window by the fireplace. Some animals may need help, he thought. He stopped in dismay. "Snow!" he cried aloud. "Snow? Winter has come." "Yes!" A strange icy voice swirled through the snowflakes. "Silly rabbit, through the snowflakes. "Winter is here. Take shelter, you silly little rabbit." "Silly rabbit yourself," retorted Pookie angrily. "You are weeks too early. Autumn has only come." "I arrive when I like," repeated Winter in a freezing tone. "See my icicles?" He waved his long white fingers at Pookie's face, lost in a thundering wind. Then Pookie lost his temper. Holding his lantern high, he shouted with all his might, and his brave words went swirling through the snowflakes. "Winter!" he shouted. "Can you hear me? I think you are cruel. You come too early and spoil all the berries and nuts with your frost and snow, and woodland folk go hungry until spring comes, and you are so rough." That's winter, by the way. And you are so rough. You smash trees down, and little homes with them come crashing down too. Winter, I wish you would go away and never come back. For one long, frightening moment, there was silence. Then, with a swoosh, all the snow swirled away out of the wood. The wind went too. Winter heard me, gasped Pookie, amazed. He flew in the cottage, squealing, "Belinda, Belinda! Everyone, look! Winter has gone! I, Pookie, sent Winter away." It was true, Winter had gone. Leaves and berries glowed gold and red, and it was autumn again. "Pookie's our hero! Pookie's our hero!" everyone cried. "We must give a wonderful party for Pookie." The homeless animals soon roused all the other woodland folk, and in the gobbling kitchens under the trees, the cooks roasted and baked marvelous dishes. Goblins came running to set the giant toadstools with luscious fruits and jellies piled high on leaf plates. Pookie's health was drunk in cowslip wine. What a feast it was, and all for Pookie. I like the look of the jellies. When Pookie flew through the wood next morning, he was greeted on all sides by grateful woodland folk. Everyone said how clever he had been to send Winter away until he came to see Nomini and his toadstool house. "I see nothing but trouble ahead," said the elf sadly. That's Nomini. "But why?" asked Pookie. "Everyone is pleased I sent Winter away." "No one realizes what it will mean yet," replied Nomini wisely. "Listen, Pookie. The year must have 4 seasons. Spring for new things to grow in. Summer for sunshine and flowers. Autumn for ripening fruits and preparing cozy homes for cold days ahead. Winter for resting in. We need winter, Pookie. Winter is the world's resting time." Pookie felt puzzled. How can Squiffletail Squirrel rest when winter's winds blow down the very tree he is resting in? Pookie inquired. How can Wiggle-Nose Rabbit rest when winter's rains flood into his halls? Squiffletail should choose a strong tree like a beech or an oak, not an elm to live in, Nomini replied severely, and that stupid Wiggle-Nose dug his burrow far too near the stream. They had all summer and autumn to prepare cozy homes for the winter. All the wise woodland folk slept right through the storm, but for a few weeks all went well. Then one day Pookie heard 2 little stoats discussing something. "It's about our winter coats," one told him. "They're turning white already, Pookie, to match the snow. But there's no snow. We will show up too easily. What shall we do?" "How should I know?" said Pookie, and flew away. Then he met Wise Whisker Squirrel busily gathering nuts. "For my winter store, Pookie," he explained. Although I sleep most of winter, I like a nibble if I wake. Look, my fur is turning to winter grey already." Pookie felt a worrying feeling in his tummy. What would happen when autumn was over and no winter came? He flew down to see Hippie Hedgehog, who was sorting out dry leaves. "I'm preparing for winter," he told Pookie. "After a good meal I shall roll into a ball, roll in these leaves until my spikes are covered, and then roll into my usual sleeping hole under the hedge and you won't see me until next spring." Pookie felt the worrying feeling again. "But what if winter does come back and this hedge is flooded with rain?" asked Pookie. "I chose my hedge carefully," replied Hippie in a snooty squeak. "I'm not like that silly Spiky who slept in a hedge down near the stream." That's Hippie Hedgehog, and they're the Stoats. And from then on, things seemed to go from bad to worse in the woods. When Pookie flew past, he could hear grumbling coming from every leaf and out of every tree. The dormice grumbled most. Here are we, fat as butter, and ready to snooze the whole winter. It ought to be winter by now, yet it's still autumn." Suddenly a rabbit squealed. "Come here quickly, everybody, come and look." All the woodland folk hurried to his side, and there on a mossy bank was a primrose. Spring had come. Everywhere signs of spring appeared. Fresh green buds popped up out of the branches among old brown autumn leaves and red berries. Bluebells, celandines, and snowdrops pushed their way through the heavy carpet of dead leaves on the ground, and daffodils lifted their golden trumpets in the spring sunshine. Yes, spring had followed autumn. Winter had completely disappeared. Then at last the woodland folk realized what trouble they were in. "Who will spread a blanket of snow so that we can sleep snugly underneath in our cozy homes? We cannot manage without winter. Flowers cannot get ready to flower again without a rest during the winter. Hedgehogs and dormice and squirrels and lots of other animals must have their winter sleep." "It's all Pookie's fault," muttered somebody, and everybody took up the cry. "It's all Pookie's fault. All Pookie's fault. Pookie has upset the whole world." Pookie crept sorrowfully away. I only tried to help them," he thought, "and now they have all turned against me." "Pookie, Pookie, Pookie, where are you?" cried the angry animals. "It's all your fault. You put the world wrong. Now you must put it right." Oh, poor little Pookie. Pookie flew to the cottage. Without telling Belinda, he put on his muffler and put something to eat in his bundle. Then he said farewell to the woodland folk. "I, Pookie, am off to find winter," he said. "If I cannot put things right for you, I will never come back." And away he flew. Left behind in the glade, Wise Whisker Squirrel stood wringing his paws in despair. "We should never have let him go," he wailed. "He did his very best for us all on the night of the storm," and said Nominee, "and now we have all turned against him." "It is your fault if anything happens to Pookie," Nominee went sadly into his little toadstool house. Meanwhile, high up and far away flew Pookie. "I must fly away from the sun," he thought. "Winter will be on the other side of the world." And so began Pookie's longest flight. All that day he flew, and on and on and on, and far into the night. At last he fluttered wearily down to rest on a moonlit rock in the sea. "There's a nip in the air," he murmured aloud. "You are right, there is," replied a seagull. "If you like to share my nest for the night hours, you are welcome." Pookie hopped gratefully in amongst the few sticks that the seagull called his nest. Thank you, he said, undoing his bundle. Would you like a honey bun, seagull? Pookie nibbled and the girl pecked in friendly silence. Then Pookie said, I'm looking for winter. Am I going the right way, please? Keep flying north, advised the gull. What is north? asked Pookie. The gull pointed his wing. See the star up there? Pookie looked up, and a big star winked kindly down at him. That's the North Star. We birds always know where we are. Anywhere in the world, the stars tell us. But in daylight I won't be able to see the North Star, worried Pookie. Fly straight into the north wind, stupid, said the gull scornfully. He's the coldest wind blowing from the North Pole, with ice in his breath. Then he tucked his head under his wing and went to sleep. Soon Pookie snuggled down in his muffler and slept too. When Pookie awoke, the gull was away fishing for his breakfast, so he left a honey bun in the nest as a thank you and flew straight up to the cold north wind. Soon it grew chillier until Pookie's breath puffed into tiny clouds and his whiskers grew stiff with frost. Flying was difficult, his little wings were tired and his paws ached from holding his bundle. Somewhere over the sea, Pookie let go of his bundle and watched it drop down, down, down into the stormy waves miles below. I must be near winter by now, he thought. Late on the third day, suddenly a snowflake fell on his nose. Then he found himself flying among great grey snow-filled clouds. Winter, he called, Winter, where are you? All around you, replied Winter's freezing voice. You'd better land on the iceberg down there and say what you have to say, Pookie. Pookie's paws almost froze as they touched the ice. He shook his wings, but they were heavy with frost. I've come to say sorry, said Pookie in a small, scared voice, and to ask you to come back. Winter laughed at the noise. Laughed, and the noise of crackling ice went echoing round the icebergs. Oh no, Pookie, he cried. I like it here. I'm king all the year round, and I don't have to tidy up after autumn. Oh, Winter, please come back, begged Pookie. Everything has gone wrong without you. The world is upside down. Spring's primroses and bluebells are flowering, and autumn's berries are still on the hedges. You should have thought of all of that, cried Winter, swooshing round in swirling snowdrifts. I'm sorry, but I'm not coming back. Oh, go home, Pookie, before I freeze you into an iced rabbit. You may as well freeze me into an iced rabbit, Winter, Pookie whispered in a small voice. I have failed. I can never go back to the wood. Fly away, Pookie, before I freeze you, warned Winter angrily. This is your last chance, you silly interfering little rabbit. Then for the second time Pookie lost his temper with Winter. Like a little angry snowball, Pookie shook his clenched fist at Winter. I don't care what you do to me now, Winter, he cried desperately. I've said I'm sorry and that I told you to go away, but you won't forgive me. But you did do a lot of damage. You did smash trees down and hurt lots of animals and little birds. I still think you are the cruelest thing in the world. Now go ahead and freeze me into an iced rabbit. Pookie sat down and covered his eyes with his paws. This is the end of me, he thought. I shall never see Belinda and the woodland folk again. There he sat, waiting to be frozen. And then a queer thing happened. The wind suddenly died down. Snowflakes gently floated around him, and looking up he saw Winter, a strange, humble Winter, coming towards him. Pookie, I am sorry. I really... Pookie, am I really cruel? Asked Winter. Did I really hurt some birds and animals? Yes, you did, replied Pookie, with your wind and your rain. Then I'm really truly sorry, apologized Winter. But Pookie, my winds must blow hard to bring the old dead leaves off their branches, and my rains must rain hard to fill the ponds and the streams. And anyhow, it is often the animals' own fault if they come to harm in winter. How is it their fault if you are rough and cruel? Demanded Pookie indignantly, thinking of the homeless animals. Because all animals and birds come into the world with instinct, replied Winter. What? Inquired Pookie, puzzled. Instinct. It's another word for common sense, explained Winter wisely. They've all got it, but some are too lazy to use it. Pookie began to understand. Does instincts tell wise Whisker Squirrel to store his nuts in autumn? He asked. Yes, and choose a strong, deep-rooted tree like an oak to sleep in through the stormy days, went on Winter. You see, Pookie, some trees blow down easily. Elms and firs do, and birds know that. Instinct, murmured Pookie wisely. Yet some silly ones, like Squiffletail, will live in them. Rabbits and moles know that earth near streams is wet and flooded in winter, yet Wiggle-Nose is too lazy to dig a new burrow. The little rabbit remembered Hippy Hedgehog choosing his hedge carefully. Wise Whiskers, storing his nuts, and Nominee's words, we need winter. Too late, Pookie realized winter was a friend of the world, not an enemy. He remembered how there were no more homeless animals the second night. Pookie, said Winter suddenly, I will come back. You will? Pookie couldn't believe his ears. Yes, and this year I will not bring snow because of the spring flowers which are flowering by mistake. Go back to your woodland friends who were foolish before and give them this message. When the leaves turn brown and the berries scarlet, it is my warning. I am on my way. Will that give them time to? Began Pookie anxiously. Yes, cried Winter impatiently. Time to lay in stores of food to last until spring. Time to find safe, cozy sleeping holes in strong trees and dry places. And tell them to use their instinct. I'll tell them, promised Pookie, and he struggled up on his weary little paws on the slippery ice. Now he had the long, lonely flight home in front of him. His wings ached, his ears dropped. Poor little Pookie, thought Winter, but he's tried so hard to put things right again. Gently he lifted the exhausted little rabbit on a passing cloud. Sleep, Pookie, whispered Winter, and my wind will blow you safely home. And Pookie fell asleep on a cloud. When he awoke, it was evening, and he was on the cottage doorstep, and a moment later he was safely in Belinda's arms, telling her all of his adventures. After sipping his tiny mug of warm milk and honey, Pookie went out into the moonlight and called a meeting in the woods. But only a very few animals and birds came to Pookie's meeting, just the very ones who were homeless on the night of the storm, and all the others had used their instinct, thought Pookie, who had got the word right by now, and had disappeared before Winter caught them unaware. Pookie gave the homeless animals Winter's message, and they all promised to do as they were told. No one noticed Pookie shiver and creep quietly away and climb in his bed in Belinda's work basket. She found him lying there later, with his eyes closed and a snuffy nose. She felt his tiny hot paw and saw that his wings had almost disappeared. For Pookie was very, very ill. No little white fluffy rabbit can fly through the cold north wind and sleep on the wet rocks all night and sit on icebergs without catching a chill. Belinda moved Pookie's bed near the fire and tried to slip a drop of warm honey into his little cold mouth. The woodland folk came from all corners of the wood and stood round in despair. Hours went by. It was the most dreadful evening. Then suddenly Pookie opened his eye, one eye, then the other, and then he smiled up at Belinda, the most beautiful rabbit smile in the world, and his wings began to grow again. Well, that's him when he's feeling really poorly. Pookie is better, cried all the animals joyfully. And just then a gentle breeze blew round the cottage and a patter of rain sounded on the roof. The woodland folk hurried to the door. Winter has come back, they cried. Winter has come back. Pookie has put the world to rights. I'm not staying long this year, Winter told them. And I haven't brought any snow because I told Pookie I wouldn't hurt any spring flowers that have come out too early by mistake. But next year, remember, when the leaves turn brown and the berries scarlet, I shall be on my way. We'll remember, Winter, promised the woodland folk, and we'll use our instinct. Then we shall be safe and cozy, whatever your weather is like. Late that night, whilst Belinda tucked Pookie up in his basket, they could hear Winter busily blowing the old leaves off the branches and filling the stream with fresh, clean rain. Pookie smiled sleepily. Everything is all right, he thought. The woodland folk are safe and cozy. We are all friends again, with Winter, and I am home with Belinda. And he snuggled down and fell asleep. Hope you enjoyed that. I love it. It's got a really nice message and reminds us the importance of all the different seasons, because we can always, it's very easy to think of when it's cold and wet as it's really difficult, or when it's too hot, and it's important to remember the good things that come with all the different seasons in life. Hope you enjoyed. Join me for the next story. I'm not sure which one I'm reading yet. For now.